Without any direction after leaving the orphanage, Nora never imagined she would be chosen to serve in the castle of the most feared Alpha King in the realm. People said no one approached him without paying a price. There were whispers of a curse. On the night of the king's birthday, screams and the sound of breaking objects echoed through the corridors. Driven by curiosity, she stepped where she should not have, and he sensed her scent before he ever saw her. When he finally found her, something impossible happened. Nora was the only one capable of calming his wolf. At dawn she fled, and now the king hunts her across the entire realm, guided only by a forgotten handkerchief. The door of the orphanage of St. Miriam closed behind Nora with a sound that echoed like a final sentence. She stood frozen on the threshold for far too long, her fingers clenched around the strap of the cloth bag that held everything she owned, 2 patched changes of clothes, an embroidered handkerchief with her initials. The only object the Mother Superior had said arrived with her when she was left there as a baby, and 3 copper coins that would not buy enough bread for even a week. 22 years spent within those cold stone walls, sleeping in narrow bunks, eating watery porridge. And now, simply nothing. No farewell embrace, no blessing. Only the Mother Superior saying, in a weary voice, that Nora was too old to remain there, that they needed more space for the children. My own path. Nora looked at the dirt road stretching out before her, disappearing among the twisted trees of the forest that surrounded the village. Which path? I do not even know where to go. She never knew who her parents were. She never had a surname. She never belonged to anyone. Nora took one step, then another, and then simply began to walk. There was nowhere else to go but forward. The village around the orphanage was small, poor, forgotten even by the tax collectors. Low houses of wood and clay, muddy streets, people with their heads bowed, working hard just to survive one more day. She walked to the edge of the village, where a well surrounded by worn stones stood, and sat down there, her legs aching, hunger tightening in her stomach. She pulled one of the coins from her bag and stared at it. 3 coins. That is all I have. That was when she heard the voices. They are hiring at the castle, you know, a middle-aged woman was saying to another as they drew water from the well. My cousin sent word. They say the Alpha King is expanding the staff. Cooks, laundresses, maids. They pay in silver. Silver? The other woman let out a dry laugh. And who is crazy enough to go work in the kingdom of wolves? You know what they say about that place. Creatures that turn into beasts. People who disappear without a trace. The king himself is a demon, according to travelers. Demon or not, silver is silver. And they say he barely shows himself. Stays locked in his chambers, for whatever reasons people whisper. The ones who work there are common servants. Humans like us. Nora remained completely still, every word cutting deep. Castle. Work. Silver. She knew almost nothing about the world of the wolves, only fragments of stories she heard when travelers stopped in the village, tales of shapeshifters, creatures half human and half beast, who ruled entire kingdoms. They spoke of rigid hierarchies, powerful alphas, strange rituals. They spoke of the kingdom of Darkvale River, whose capital lay 3 days' ride from there, and of Castle Valeward, a black fortress raised in the mountains, where the feared Alpha King Raiden Valeward lived. The stories always painted the wolves as dangerous, savage, unpredictable. But Nora looked at the 3 coins resting in her palm and thought, what do I have to lose? She stood, tucked the coins back into her bag, and approached the 2 women. Excuse me for interrupting. Her voice came out low, hesitant. Do you know exactly where I could apply to work at the castle? The 2 women turned, looking her up and down with expressions that shifted between surprise and pity. Are you serious, girl? The older one frowned. You look like you have nowhere to sleep, I imagine. Nora felt her face heat, but she lifted her chin. I do not. That is why I need work. Any work. The woman exchanged a look with her companion, then sighed. Very well. If that is what you want, go to the Grey Raven Tavern in the village of Thornwick, half a day's walk from here along the eastern road. They say the castle's governess, Lady Adrienne Greymark, will be there tomorrow morning interviewing candidates. But listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, girl. The castle is not a place for those who fear shadows. Nora nodded, tightening her grip on the bag's strap. Thank you. The following morning, Nora arrived at the tavern before the sun had fully risen. There were other women there, perhaps 10 or 12, all with expressions that ranged from desperate hope to poorly concealed fear. No one spoke much. They simply waited. When the tavern door opened and a tall, elegant, imposing figure entered, Lady Adrienne Greymark was exactly the kind of woman who made Nora feel small without saying a single word. She was tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair pinned into a flawless bun and sharp eyes that seemed to cut straight through people. Good morning. Her voice was firm, devoid of warmth. I am Lady Adrienne Greymark, head governess of Castle Valaward. I am here to select competent servants to work in the kitchens and cleaning wings of the castle. If chosen, you will receive lodging, meals, and payment in silver. Any disobedience, theft, or improper conduct will result in immediate dismissal. Understood? All of them nodded in silence. Lady Adrienne began to walk among the women, examining each with a remembering eye. Some she dismissed at once. Others received a brief nod. When it was Nora's turn, her stomach twisted. Name? Nora, ma'am. Surname? Nora hesitated, feeling her face warm. I do not have one, ma'am. I was raised at the orphanage of St. Miriam. Lady Adrienne lifted an eyebrow, but made no comment. Age? 22 years. Experience? I worked in the orphanage kitchen since I was 12. I can cook, clean, sew, and I learn quickly. Can you read? A little, ma'am. The Mother Superior taught us the basics. Lady Adrienne studied her for a long moment, and Nora felt as though she were being dissected by that cold gaze. You look too weak to carry heavy pots, the governess said at last. I am stronger than I look, ma'am, Nora replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Very well. You are hired. Present yourself at the castle gates tomorrow at dawn. Bring only what is essential. The rest will be provided. Nora reached the gates of Castle Valeward as the sun was just beginning to light the sky. The castle was immense, far larger than any structure she had ever seen. Black towers rose against the sky, stone walls encircled the grounds, and dark banners snapped in the wind, each bearing the sigil of the Howling Wolf. Guards patrolled the ramparts, and Nora could feel the weight of their gazes even from a distance. She was not the only new hire. 5 other women waited at the entrance, all looking just as lost as she felt. A guard led them through the gates, across inner courtyards and cold stone corridors, until they reached a side wing where the servants' quarters were located. You will sleep here. The guard indicated a long room with simple bunks. Meals are served in the kitchen at dawn and at sunset. Do not leave your assigned areas without permission. Do not speak to members of the court unless directly addressed. And above all, he paused, his gaze hardening. Stay away from the royal chambers. The king values his privacy. Nora swallowed. She had not seen him yet. She did not know if she ever would. But just thinking that he was somewhere within that castle made something strange twist in her stomach. The first days were hard. Nora washed pots until her hands were red and aching, peeled potatoes until her fingers bled, carried sacks of flour that weighed nearly as much as she did. She worked from before dawn until late at night, and when she finally collapsed onto her bunk, she slept like a stone. Weeks passed. Nora learned the routine, but there was something strange she began to notice. Sometimes, while working near the kitchen windows that overlooked the inner gardens, she saw guards passing by carrying medicinal herbs. not the common herbs the kitchen used, but rare plants, some of which Nora vaguely recognized from lessons the Mother Superior had once given about ancient remedies. Once, she heard two older maids whispering. "It is for the king," one of them said. "They try everything. Healers, witches, even mages from distant lands. But nothing works." "The curse is very old," the other replied. "They say that only—" Then they noticed Nora nearby and fell silent at once. Nora did not ask. Servants who asked too many questions did not last long, and during all that time, she never saw the king. It was as if he were a ghost. The maids whispered about it when they thought no one was listening. They said the Alpha King spent days locked in his chambers, that he never came down to dine with the court, that only the most loyal guards were permitted to approach him. 3 months had passed since Nora arrived at Castle Valward. But today is the king's birthday. Nora overheard hurried conversations among the guards during dinner. They spoke in low voices, but she caught fragments. Once again, "The chains are ready. May the gods have mercy. Clear the upper corridors." She did not understand, but something in their tone left her uneasy. That night, Nora worked later than usual. The kitchen had prepared a banquet for the court. Even if the king did not attend, tradition demanded a celebration, and she stayed behind to help clean the monumental mess that remained. By the time she finished, it was past midnight, and the castle lay submerged in silence. She walked down the corridor toward the servants' quarters, her feet aching, her eyes burning with exhaustion. Then she heard it. A roar. Deep, guttural, distant, but unmistakable. Nora stopped in the middle of the corridor, her heart racing. The sound came from above, from the upper floors where the royal chambers were located. It was followed by a loud crash, as if something heavy had been hurled against a wall. She should have turned back. She should have run to her bunk and pretended she had heard nothing. But there was something in that sound, something that hooked into her from the inside, like a barbed hook driven deep. An inexplicable need to go, to help, to do something. Someone is in pain. Nora did not think. She simply moved. Nora climbed the stone stairs that led to the upper floors, following the sounds of roars and crashes echoing through the empty corridors. The guards who normally patrolled there were absent. Later, she would learn it was deliberate. Every time the curse manifested, the loyal guards cleared the upper corridors, leaving only Theron and 2 men of absolute trust to ensure the king did not escape and harm innocents. The closer she got, the heavier the air became. Something pulled her forward, an inexplicable urge she could not name. She reached a long corridor lit only by torches flickering on the walls. At its far end, a double door of dark wood stood tightly closed. And that was where the sounds were coming from. Nora approached slowly, her heart hammering. When she was only a few meters from the door, she heard a roar so ferocious that her blood ran cold. Fear hit her like a wave, and she froze completely, her feet refusing to move. Inside the room, Raiden stopped in the middle of a spasm. He scented the air violently, his head snapping toward the door. That smell, ancient herbs, willow, absinthe, consecrated lavender, healer's blood, impossible. With a brutal roar, he shattered all the chains at once. Nora heard the metallic crash and the sound of something heavy moving fast. Then, silence. She was breathing hard, still paralyzed with fear, when she heard a soft click coming from somewhere to her left. A hidden door in the wall opened, and he was there, right in front of her. Nora let out a muffled cry, instinctively stepping back. Raiden Valward was immense, taller and broader than any man she had ever seen, blonde hair disheveled and plastered to his forehead with sweat, bare torso covered in muscles that twitched violently. But what froze her in true terror was his condition. He was trapped between forms. Claws emerged and retracted from his fingertips, as if unable to decide. teeth lengthened into fangs only to partially recede. His skin shuddered, as if something beneath it were trying to tear its way out. His eyes burned gold, wild, nearly inhuman. The transformation would not complete, and the pain was visible in every contorted line of his body. He took a staggering step forward, then stopped. He scented the air, his head tilting. His golden eyes widened, absolute shock cutting through the agony. Nora seized the moment and ran. She spun and bolted down the corridor, panic flooding her. But Raiden was faster. In 3 strides he caught her. A large hand closed around her arm, not with brutality, but with unbreakable firmness. Before she could scream, he lifted her as if she weighed nothing and carried her back. "No," his voice came out rough. "Do not run." He carried her through the hidden door, down a short corridor that led directly into a room completely destroyed. He set her on her feet near the bed, but did not fully release her. One hand still held her wrist, as if afraid she might vanish. His golden eyes studied her with a mixture of shock, desperation, and something that looked like reverence. "Who are you?" Raiden asked, his voice breaking. He took a step closer, erasing the distance between them, and Nora felt the urge to retreat again. But something in those golden eyes, it was not only savagery, but desperation, loneliness, a silent plea, kept her rooted in place. When he slowly raised his hand, claws still partially extended, she simply held her breath and waited. Nora did not move. She stood there, her heart in her throat, as his fingers, still tipped with half-formed claws, touched her face. The touch was surprisingly gentle. His fingers traced the line of her jaw, lifting to brush a strand of hair away from her eyes. And then it happened. The wolf inside him fell silent. The transformation tearing Raiden apart stopped, the claws fully retracted. His eyes returned to normal, still intense, still gold, but human. His ragged breathing calmed. The muscles writhing in agony relaxed. He stood completely still, eyes wide with shock, as if unable to believe what was happening. "You," Raiden began, his voice breaking. "You calmed him. For the first time in years, you calmed him." Nora did not understand. What? But Raiden did not answer with words. He simply pulled her into him with a sudden movement, wrapping her in an embrace so tight Nora could barely breathe. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling deeply, and Nora felt his body finally relax completely for the first time since she had entered the room. "You are real," he repeated, this time more to himself than to her. Nora did not know what to say. She did not know what to do. "Do not go," he said, his voice low, almost a plea. "Just do not go. I need to understand. I need to know if this is real, or if I am finally losing my mind." Nora did not understand, but she said the only thing she could at that moment. "I will not go." Raiden sat on the edge of the bed, still holding her hand as if it were an anchor. "Tell me your name." "Nora. Nora," he repeated, as if tasting each syllable. "Just Nora? I grew up in an orphanage." Something crossed his golden eyes. Understanding, perhaps. Empathy. "I feel like an orphan, too," he said softly. "My father died when I was 15. My mother, she could not endure the curse. She looked at me with fear. When I was 17, she left. Never returned." "The curse," Nora repeated gently. "What is it?" Raiden fell silent for a long moment, his jaw tightening, and Nora saw the battle playing out behind his eyes, the struggle between revealing and hiding, between trusting and protecting. At last he sighed. "When I was born, a witch named Morrigan Vile cast a curse on me," he said quietly, controlled. Yet pain lay beneath every word. My father had executed her brother years earlier, accused of using magic against the kingdom. She swore vengeance. On the day of my birth, she stormed the castle and cast the curse before the entire court. He paused, his eyes lost in distant memories. Every year, on the day of my birth, my wolf turns against me. I lose control. I cannot fully transform nor remain human. I am trapped between the two states, torn apart from within. The pain is... He closed his eyes. Unbearable. As if every bone in my body were being broken and reforged over and over, without end. Nora felt her chest tighten. And today is my 32nd birthday. Yes. That is why you were chained. My most loyal guards restrain me each year before the wolf can take full control. Because if he does... Raiden opened his eyes, and there was something dark there. I could kill innocents, destroy everything around me. The curse turns me into a monster. Nora squeezed his hand. Did the witch say anything about how to break the curse? Raiden nodded slowly. She said only the touch of my mate could calm the wolf, and that if I did not find her before I turned 33, his voice faltered, the wolf would destroy me completely. I would lose consciousness forever. 1 year, Nora thought in horror. He has only 1 year. But you calmed me, Raiden continued, turning fully to face her. For the first time since the curse began, my wolf grew completely still. And the healers I consulted over the years said mate alone would not be enough. She would need the gift of healing, ancient magic in her blood. And you... He touched her face again, reverently. You have it. I do not know how to use magic, Nora whispered. I do not know what I am. You do not need to know, Raiden said. You only need to be. And you are. You are my salvation. When he leaned in, Nora did not pull away. And when his lips touched hers, soft, questioning, as if asking permission, she answered. The kiss began gently, almost hesitant, but quickly deepened. There was something desperate in it, as if both of them had waited an eternity for this without knowing it. Raiden's hands rose to cradle her face, fingers threading into her brown hair, and Nora found herself pressing closer, wanting more, needing more. When they finally parted, both were breathless. I do not understand what you are doing to me, Raiden murmured, his forehead resting against hers. But I do not want you to stop. Then I will not stop, Nora replied, surprising herself with her boldness. His golden eyes flared. Do you know what you are saying? I know you are suffering, Nora said softly. I know you are alone. And I know that, when I am near you, something inside me recognizes something inside you, as if we had been searching for each other without knowing. That is what you are, my mate, Raiden whispered. And then he kissed her again, and this time there was no hesitation. His hands found the ties of her dress, undoing them with fingers that trembled slightly, not only with desire, but with something deeper. Reverence, gratitude, relief. When the dress slipped away, revealing her skin, Raiden stopped. He only looked, his golden eyes tracing every curve as if committing something sacred to memory. You are... He did not finish. He only leaned in, pressing his lips to the hollow of her throat, down her collarbone, leaving a trail of kisses that set every nerve ending alight. Nora arched, her fingers burying themselves in his blonde hair as sensations she had never experienced swept through her body. When his hands explored her skin, firm yet gentle, she gasped. Raiden laid her down on the bed with care, as if she were something precious that might break. And when he finally positioned himself above her, his eyes met hers once more. Are you sure? His voice was hoarse, but there was control in it. One last chance to retreat. Because if we do this, there will be no going back. You will be mine, and I will be yours. Nora pulled him down, answering with a kiss that left no doubt. I already am yours, she whispered against his lips. And then he took her, slowly, with a gentleness that contrasted with the raw power she knew he possessed. Nora closed her eyes, her entire body vibrating with new, overwhelming sensations. Look at me, Raiden murmured, and when she opened her eyes, she found him watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. And then he moved. Pleasure built, slowly, like rising waves, every movement synchronized, every touch precise. Raiden kissed her as if he wanted to memorize her taste, his hands exploring every inch of exposed skin. Nora responded with equal intensity, her fingers tracing the lines of his muscles, feeling the restrained strength there. When the climax finally came, it was as if the entire world shattered and reformed all over again. They remained like that for a long moment, breaths uneven, hearts beating in unison. When Raiden finally withdrew, it was only to pull her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her as if afraid she might disappear. Nora rested her head against his shoulder, still trying to catch her breath, still feeling the echoes of pleasure vibrating through her body. Sleep, he murmured into her hair. I will not let anything hurt you. Ever. And for the first time in her life, Nora fell asleep feeling completely safe. Nora woke as the first light of dawn began to filter through the gaps in the heavy curtains. For a moment, she lay completely still, trying to understand where she was. The mattress beneath her was far too soft, the sheets far too fine, the silence around her far too heavy. None of it felt real. Then she turned her head and saw him. Raiden Valward was sleeping beside her. The Alpha King, the most powerful man in the realm. The one she had seen torn apart by the curse only hours before was now at peace. His face relaxed, his breathing deep and steady, the muscles that had writhed in agony completely loose. Blonde strands spread across the pillow like gold in the dim morning light. There was something almost vulnerable in the way he slept, as if for the first time in decades he had allowed all his defenses to fall away. And she was there, lying beside him, in the royal chambers. Reality crashed down on Nora. I am just a servant. The truth hammered into her mind, each word a crushing weight. He is the king. Nora sat up slowly, trying not to make a sound, her heart racing in her chest. She looked around the room. The overturned furniture, the torn curtains, the shards of glass scattered across the floor, reminders of the violence of the night before. But it all seemed distant now, unreal, as if it had happened in another world. I should not be here. The thought came with absolute clarity, sharp and cutting. What have I done? Nora pressed a hand over her mouth, stifling the sound that threatened to escape. She had spent the night in the king's arms. She had let him touch her. She had allowed herself to believe, even if only for a few hours, that she could be something more than what she was. But the morning light did not lie. She was a nameless servant, an orphan with nothing. Even if he said I have healer's blood, Nora thought, touching the embroidered handkerchief on the small table beside the bed. Even if I am his mate, I am still nobody. Just Nora. She picked up the handkerchief gently, running her fingers over the stitched letters. N.E. The Mother Superior had said only once, years ago, when Nora had asked, "Those letters were embroidered when you arrived. Perhaps they are your initials. Perhaps your mother's. I do not know, child." N.E., Nora thought. I do not even know what the E stands for. I need to leave. The urgency hit her like a violent wave. If anyone found her here, if the servants spread rumors, she would be destroyed, cast out. With trembling hands, Nora slid out of bed, searching for her clothes. She found her simple dress crumpled on the floor and dressed in absolute silence, every movement carefully measured to avoid making a sound. Raiden did not stir. He continued sleeping, finally at peace. Nora looked at him one last time, memorizing every detail because she knew she would never have this chance again. The blonde hair spread across the pillow, the strong line of his jaw, the scars marking his skin like untold stories. "Forgive me," she thought, without knowing exactly what she was asking forgiveness for not being enough. Then her heart shattered into pieces she did not know how to gather. Nora crossed the room toward the door. She opened it slowly, inch by inch, praying the hinges would not creak, and froze. Lady Adrienne Greymark stood in the corridor. The governess was there, arms crossed over her chest, her body completely blocking the passage. And the expression on her face made Nora's blood run cold. For a long, endless moment, neither of them spoke. They only stared at each other, Nora with guilt written into every line of her body, Adrienne with controlled fury radiating like visible heat. Then Adrienne stepped forward, her voice low and venomous, every word carefully measured so as not to wake the man sleeping inside the room. "You have committed a very grave mistake." Nora opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Adrienne moved closer, and now Nora could see the details, the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers dug into her own arms as if holding herself back from doing something violent. Lying with the king? The words lashed like whips. A nameless servant, without family, without any value at all. Each accusation was a knife. "Do you think you have any worth here?" Adrienne continued, her voice rising slightly before she forced it down again. "Do you think this means anything? That he cares?" "I did not," Nora began, her voice weak, broken. Nora instinctively stepped back, but Adrienne advanced, keeping the distance short, oppressive. "Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you." The governess leaned slightly closer, her eyes boring into Nora's. "You are nothing, less than nothing, and if you think the king would choose you, an ordinary orphan, over someone of proper lineage, then you are even more foolish than I thought." The words hurt more than Nora expected, because they were true. They were exactly what she herself believed. "Gather your things and leave," Adrienne ordered, her voice now heavy with absolute authority. "Now, before I turn you over to the guards for trespassing in the royal chambers." Nora felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. "Go," Adrienne said again, pointing down the corridor. "Before I change my mind and call the guards right now." Nora had no choice. With her face wet with tears, she turned and ran. She ran through stone corridors, down spiral staircases, across empty halls lit only by the faint light of dawn. She took nothing with her. She did not return to the servants' quarters to collect her few possessions. She only ran, her heart pounding, her lungs burning, the pain in her chest so sharp she could barely breathe. She passed the guards patrolling the gates. They looked at her with surprise but did not stop her. After all, she was only a servant, no one important. And then she was outside. Nora ran down the dirt road leading away from Valward, not knowing where she was going, only knowing she needed distance. She needed to disappear before the pain tore her apart completely. It was only when she finally stopped, lungs burning, legs shaking, miles away from the castle, that she realized. The handkerchief, the embroidered handkerchief with her initials, the only thing she had from the orphanage. The only piece of a past she had never known. It was in the room. She had left it behind. Nora collapsed to her knees in the middle of the road, sobbing, her hands pressed to her chest as if she could hold together the pieces of her breaking heart. "I lost everything." And there, alone on the deserted road beneath a sky beginning to brighten, Nora cried until she had no tears left. Raiden woke alone. The first thing he registered was the cold, the absence of warmth where a body should have been. He opened his eyes immediately, every instinct flaring, and turned his head. The bed was empty. For a second, he thought perhaps she was still in the room, dressing, perhaps, or standing by the window. But the silence was absolute, and her scent, that scent of ancient herbs his wolf had recognized instantly, the scent of healer's blood running through her veins, was fading. "Nora?" No answer. Ryden rose quickly, sweeping the room with his gaze. Empty. Completely empty. Panic began to rise in his throat. He crossed the room in 3 strides, flung the door open, and found the corridor equally empty. No guards, no servants, and no sign of her. "Nora!" His voice echoed through the corridors, but there was no response. "She is gone." The realization hit him like a blow to the stomach. She left me. The wolf inside him roared, a surge of desperation and fury crashing through his body with such force it nearly brought him to his knees. He felt claws threatening to emerge, his eyes burning gold, the transformation pulling beneath his skin. But then he forced himself to breathe, to control it. "She has healer's blood," he reminded himself. "She calmed my wolf. For the first time, I found peace. And now?" Ryden went back into the room. That was when he saw it. A piece of fabric on the floor near the bed. Ryden knelt and picked it up. It was a handkerchief, delicate, old, with fine embroidery along the edges. And at its center, stitched in white thread, were 2 letters, N-E. He pressed the handkerchief to his face and inhaled. Her scent exploded through his senses. Soft, human, with a hint of herbs she must have used in her hair. And beneath it, unmistakable now that he knew what to seek, was the scent of the healing gift. Willow, absinthe, consecrated lavender. The herbs ancient healers carried in their blood, even without knowing it. Ryden rose, still clutching the handkerchief, and an iron determination settled in his chest. She is mine, and I will find her. Ryden summoned Theron at once. The captain of the guard arrived within minutes. "Your Majesty." "She is gone," Ryden said without preamble. "The servant who was in my chambers last night. Nora. She fled." "Fled? Someone was here last night?" Ryden cut him off. "I need to find her. Now. Your Majesty, with all due respect, we have responsibilities here." "The court—" "To hell with the court," Ryden hissed, his eyes glowing gold. "She is my Luna, my mate, the only person capable of calming the curse, and I will not let her go." "The servant?" Theron repeated, incredulous. "Your Majesty, are you certain that—" "Absolutely certain," Ryden roared. "She calmed my wolf last night. For the first time in 32 years, I spent a birthday without being torn apart by the curse, and I discovered why. She has ancestral healer's blood. My wolf recognized her. She is my Luna, and I need to find her." Theron fell silent for a long moment, studying the king, then nodded. "I understand. What do you need from me?" "Search the castle. Question every servant. Find out who saw her last, where she went, what happened. Someone knows something." "What does she look like?" Theron asked pragmatically. Ryden hesitated, realizing he barely knew how to describe her in words that did her justice. Brown hair, dark eyes, small, thin. He paused, gripping the handkerchief more tightly. She is the kind of person who goes unnoticed, that no one pays attention to. But when she is close, it is impossible not to feel her. Theron nodded, now understanding the urgency. If the girl was so ordinary, so invisible, finding her would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. "I will begin immediately," he said. "But Your Majesty, if she fled, it is because she was afraid. And frightened servants tend to disappear very well. That is why I will go after her myself," Ryden said. But I need to know where to begin. I need to understand what made her run." "Yes, sir." Theron left swiftly, and Ryden remained alone in the ruined room, holding the embroidered handkerchief as if it were the most precious thing in the world. It took 3 hours for Theron to return with information. During that time, he discreetly questioned dozens of servants. Most did not even know who Nora was. A girl so ordinary, so invisible, that despite working in the castle for 3 months, few remembered her name. Some recognized her when Theron described her, but only as that girl from the kitchen or the one who always keeps her head down. But eventually, he found clues. The guards at the gates saw her leave at dawn, Theron reported when he returned to the king's chambers. They said a young girl ran past them, crying. Brown hair, simple dress. She carried nothing. She just fled. Ryden felt his jaw tighten. "And no one stopped her?" "She is only a servant, Your Majesty. The guards had no reason to prevent her from leaving." "Anything else?" Ryden asked. "Yes." Theron hesitated. "I questioned the servants as you ordered, and I discovered something troubling." "What?" "Lady Edrienne was seen near your chambers this morning. Very early. Before dawn." Theron looked directly at the king. "And one of the cleaning maids said she heard raised voices in the corridor. She could not understand what was said, but she saw a young girl run from the royal chambers in tears, and Lady Edrienne was standing there, watching." Something cold and furious settled in Ryden's chest. "Edrienne. She expelled her," Ryden said, and it was not a question. It was absolute certainty. "It seems likely, Your Majesty." The fury Ryden felt was so intense his wolf nearly broke to the surface. Only brutal force of will kept the transformation contained. "Bring Lady Edrienne here," Ryden ordered, his voice dangerously low. "Now." "Your Majesty, perhaps it would be better—" "Now, Theron." The captain nodded and left quickly. Ryden stood in the middle of the room, trembling with restrained rage, the handkerchief still clenched in his fist. She dared. She dared to touch what is mine. When Lady Edrienne entered 10 minutes later, escorted by 2 guards, she still held herself upright, chin lifted. But Ryden saw the fear in her eyes. "Your Majesty," she curtsied, "you summoned me?" Ryden did not answer at once. He merely watched her, letting the silence stretch, heavy and threatening. "Where is she?" he asked at last. Edrienne blinked, feigning confusion. "Who, Your Majesty?" "Do not test me, Edrienne." Ryden stepped forward, and she instinctively stepped back. "The servant. Nora. Where is she?" "I do not know," Edrienne said, but her voice wavered. "She left, fled. She probably stole something and—" "Lie!" Ryden's roar made the walls tremble. His eyes flared gold, the wolf surging to the surface. "You expelled her." Edrienne went completely pale. "Your Majesty, I merely—" She had no right to be there. A servant. I was protecting your reputation. "My reputation?" Ryden let out a humorless laugh. "You think I care about reputation?" He stepped closer, forcing Edrienne to tilt her head back to keep looking at him. "That woman is my mate," Ryden said, each word clear and absolute. "She has ancestral healer's blood. She calmed my wolf. She is the only thing keeping me whole." Tears finally welled in Edrienne's eyes, not of remorse, but of rage and humiliation. "She is not worthy," Edrienne burst out, all composure gone. "A nameless servant, without family, without anything. How can you choose her when you could have? When I have always been here, always loyal, always waiting for something that would never be yours," Ryden cut in coldly. "I never gave you hope, Edrienne. I never promised you anything. And if you mistook my courtesy for something more, that was your mistake. She does not deserve you." Edrienne screamed, tears streaming down her face. "She does not deserve to be Luna, She does not deserve— Enough! Raiden roared. You are stripped of your position, effective immediately. Gather your belongings and leave my castle. Raiden, please. Edrian reached out, desperate. It is your majesty to you, he corrected, and you have until sunset. After that, you will be escorted out by force. Edrian opened her mouth to protest, but then something shifted in her expression. Pain gave way to rage. Humiliation gave way to hatred. Edrian was taken to her chambers under guard, but her mind was already working feverishly. She locked the door, dismissed the guards with a curt order, and walked to her desk. She pulled a blank parchment, dipped her quill in ink, and began to write with hands trembling with fury. She did not write to the court. She did not write to local allies. She wrote to the only man who had as much to gain as she did in destroying Raiden Valward, Kael Mordain, Alpha of the Southern Lands. Ambitious, cruel, and always searching for weaknesses to exploit. Kael had been investigating Raiden for years. He had spies planted in the castle, knew about the curse, understood the king's patterns of behavior. But one crucial piece had always been missing: how to use that weakness. And Edrian was about to hand it to him. She wrote every detail. About the curse only the most loyal guards fully knew. About how Raiden lost control every birthday, becoming vulnerable, breakable. About how he had spent decades desperately searching for his mate, the only one capable of saving him. And then she wrote about Nora, a human servant, insignificant, ordinary, but with ancestral healer's blood, a discovery confirmed by the king himself, apparently essential to the Alpha King's survival. She fled the castle this morning. She is alone, unprotected, wandering the roads. A perfect weakness to be exploited. He will search for her. He will abandon the throne, leave the kingdom vulnerable. And when he finds her, she will be his only weakness. Capture her, and Raiden Valaward will become yours to control. When she finished, she sealed the parchment with wax and summoned a messenger of absolute trust, a man who had served her family for decades and would ask no questions. Take this to the Southern Lands, she ordered, directly to Alpha Kael Mordain. Deliver it by hand, and speak to no one of its contents. Your reward will be generous. The messenger nodded and departed at once. Shortly after, Raiden Valaward mounted his horse, dressed in simple traveler's clothes, without armor, without crown, without any sign of his position. Theron stood beside him, equally disguised. The court will not like this, the captain said. I do not care, Raiden replied, gripping the reins firmly. The Council of Regents can manage the daily affairs. You will remain here to ensure security. And Lord Brennan understands political matters better than I do. But Your Majesty. Theron, Raiden interrupted, his voice lower now. If I do not find her, in 1 year I will be dead anyway. The curse will destroy me. And then the kingdom will be left without a king, without an heir, plunged into a war of succession. He held the captain's gaze. Finding her is not only about me, it is about ensuring this kingdom has a future, that it has a sane, whole ruler, capable of leading without being torn apart from within. Theron fell silent, processing. Raiden spurred his horse and rode off, following the faint scent that still lingered on the handkerchief, following the invisible trail only he could detect. Hold on, Nora. I am coming. Nora arrived in Grey Hollow when the sun was already high in the sky. The small village sat on the borders of the kingdom, hidden among mist-covered hills and dense forests that seemed to swallow the light. The tavern was in the center of the village. Nora pushed the door open and stepped inside. The interior was dark, damp, and smelled of stale beer and wood smoke. A few tables were occupied by men drinking in silence, and a middle-aged woman cleaned glasses behind the counter with a weary expression. The woman lifted her eyes when Nora approached. Lost? She asked, her voice rough from too much smoking. Looking for work, Nora replied, forcing steadiness into her voice. I can clean, cook, serve. I learn fast. The woman studied her for a long moment, her eyes taking in the wrinkled dress, the disheveled hair, the empty hands. Running from someone? Nora hesitated. Lying would be useless. The truth was written into every line of her body. Yes. The woman nodded, as if she had expected that answer. I don't care about your past as long as you work properly, she said. My name is Greta. I own this place. I can offer food, a cot in the back, and a few copper coins a week. Interested? Relief flooded Nora's chest. Yes, very. Good. Start now. Greta gestured toward the tables. Those men have been waiting far too long. Serve them. And so, without any more ceremony, Nora began to work. The days dragged on in a routine that was both numbing and painful. That night, as she served ale to a group of travelers who had stopped in the village, Nora began to catch fragments of conversation that made her attention snap sharp. They say the Alpha King abandoned the throne, one of the men said, his voice thick with drink. Vanished. Left the castle days ago. Nora nearly dropped the mug in her hand. Nonsense, another replied. Kings don't just disappear. But this one did. My cousin who works in the royal stables told me. Said the king left alone, only gave instructions to the captain of the guard, and no one knows where he went. The court is in a panic. Nora forced herself to keep serving, to keep her expression neutral, but every nerve in her body was on alert. He left? Why? Maybe he's hunting, a third man suggested. Alphas need territory, conquests. Nora stepped away from the table before they could notice she was listening. She went to the back of the tavern, pressed her spine against the cold wall, and tried to control her uneven breathing. In the weeks that followed, Nora began paying closer attention to the travelers' conversations. And that was how she started to learn about the wolves' world. She heard about alphas and betus, about rigid hierarchies within packs, about how strength determined rank. She heard about Lunas, the mates chosen by alphas, women who ruled at their side, as respected as they were feared. She heard about soul bonds, rare near-mythic connections in which two beings recognized each other so deeply they became, essentially, one. They said that when an alpha found his mate, the whole world could collapse around him, and he would protect her. Always. No matter the cost. But for Nora, raised between the cold walls of an orphanage, where love was a rare word and magic was not even whispered, all of it felt impossible to believe. Wolves that turned into men, curses cast by witches, predestined soulmates, bonds that transcended choice and reason. It was a whirlwind of information that her mind, accustomed only to the hard, simple reality of survival, struggled to process. How could it be real? How could a love like that exist? Instant, overwhelming, inevitable. Is that what I am to him? Nora would wonder, distractedly. A true mate? That foggy morning, Nora was wiping down tables when the tavern door opened. She did not look up. She simply kept working, already used to the constant flow of travelers. But then she felt it. Something shifted in the air. It grew heavier, charged, as if a storm were about to break inside that small space. Nora lifted her eyes slowly and froze. Ryden Valaward stood in the doorway. He wore simple traveler's clothes, a dark tunic, worn trousers, a cloak with the hood thrown back, revealing disheveled blonde hair. Stubble shadowed his jaw, deep hollows sat beneath his golden eyes, and road dust streaked his skin. He looked exhausted, but his eyes, those intense golden eyes, burned with something so ferocious it stole the air from her lungs. Raiden saw her, and the entire world stopped. For one endless moment, neither of them moved. They simply stared across the space between them. She with the cleaning cloth still in her hands, he with the door still hanging open behind him. Then Ryden crossed the tavern. He did not run. He did not need to. Each step was measured, deliberate. And everyone in the tavern instinctively moved aside, feeling the power rolling off him even without armor, even without a crown. He stopped in front of her. So close Nora could feel the heat, could see every detail. The fatigue lines on his face, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands opened and closed at his sides as if he were fighting the urge to touch her. "You," he rasped, his voice rough, broken. "You are my Luna." The silence that followed was absolute. Everyone in the tavern went still, watching, waiting. Nora felt tears sting her eyes. "Ryden, no." He cut her off, taking one more step, erasing the last inch of space between them. "Don't run from me again. Don't leave me again." "But the court—" Adrian said. "Adrian was exiled," Ryden said, and there was cold satisfaction in those words. "Banished the very day you left. She has no power over you anymore." Nora blinked, startled. "I ran because I thought I wasn't enough. That you would eventually realize you deserved someone better. Someone of proper lineage. That you only wanted me because you need me to survive the curse." "I need you," Ryden admitted. And there was brutal honesty in the words. "Yes, I need you to calm my wolf, to break the curse, to survive the next year. But that isn't all I feel, not even close." He rested his forehead against hers. "I spent 32 years searching for my mate, 32 years believing it would be only need, only survival. But then I found you and—" His voice softened. "And I learned that mate is not just compatibility. It is recognition. It is looking at someone and thinking, 'Oh, so it's you. Finally, it's you.'" "Ryden," Nora whispered. "You are the only one who matters," Ryden said. And there was so much conviction in those words that Nora felt something break inside her. Then, right there in the middle of the tavern, in front of everyone, Ryden Valaward dropped to one knee. The Alpha King, the most powerful man in the realm, kneeling before a human servant. "Come back with me," he said, his voice low but clear. "Please. Come back with me and be my Luna. Be my mate. Be mine." Nora looked at him, at the man who had crossed half the kingdom to find her, who had abandoned the throne to search for her, who was now kneeling at her feet, asking for something she did not even know she was allowed to give. And she realized there was no choice. There never had been, because she was already his. From that first night. From the first touch. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, but it carried through the silence of the tavern. Ryden closed his eyes, and the relief that crossed his expression was so intense, it made Nora's chest tighten. He rose in one fluid motion, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her. It was not gentle. It was desperate, as if he had been waiting an eternity for it. When they finally parted, both of them breathing hard, Ryden rested his forehead against hers. "Never run from me again," he murmured. "Promise." "I promise," Nora whispered back. "But Ryden, what if the court still—" "The court will learn to accept it," he cut in. "You broke the curse. You saved me. And more than that, you are my mate. They have no choice but to accept you." Nora nodded, trusting him in a way she had never trusted anyone. "Ryden," she said softly, "I'm sorry. For running. For leaving you searching for weeks." He kissed her forehead. "You're here now. That's all that matters." And as Ryden held her as if he would never let her go again, she finally allowed herself to believe. Ryden and Nora were about to leave Grey Hollow when the tavern doors burst open. The sound of heavy boots against the wooden floor made everyone in the tavern freeze. Nora, who had been gathering her few things while Ryden settled payment with Greta, turned instinctively and felt her blood run cold. A man stepped in, Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair cut short, and icy gray eyes that looked capable of freezing everything around him. He wore reinforced leather armor with plates of dark metal, and there was something predatory in the way he moved, as if each step were calculated to intimidate. Behind him, more men filed in. 10, 15, all armed, all with the posture of warriors who had seen many battles. Raiden turned slowly, immediately positioning himself between Nora and the newcomers. And when he spoke, his voice came out low, dangerous. "Kael Mordain, how interesting to find you so far from the southern lands." The man, Kael, smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only something calculated, cruel. "Raiden Valaward, or should I say, Alpha King." He dipped into a shallow bow, mocking. Though a king who abandons his throne to hunt human servant girls hardly deserves the title, don't you think? Nora felt Raiden tense beside her, but he did not answer the provocation. He only waited. Kael walked slowly through the tavern, his men spreading out to block every exit. The few patrons who still remained hurried away, and even Greta disappeared into the back. "You know," Kael went on, picking up an abandoned mug and sniffing its contents with contempt, "I've studied you for years, Raiden. Years watching, investigating, looking for the weakness every great man has, and you were particularly hard to decipher. Get to the point, Kael." "The point?" Kael set the mug down and turned to face him directly. "The point is, I found your secret. Morrigan Vale's curse. Fascinating, really. Every year on the day you were born, your wolf turns against you. Must be uncomfortable." Nora watched Raiden's jaw tighten, his fists clench. "How? Spies," Kael answered simply. "I have very loyal people in very interesting places. Servants, lesser guards, even a few merchants who frequent your castle." He smiled. "I've been investigating you for years, Raiden. I knew about the curse, the patterns, the vulnerability. But one crucial piece was missing: how to use it against you." Kael looked straight at Nora. "And then I received a very interesting letter from a certain exiled governess. Lady Edrienne was extremely helpful in filling in the missing details. About how you finally found your mate. About the ancestral healer's blood. About how she ran." He tilted his head. "It was only a matter of tracking where a frightened servant girl would flee. And here we are." He stepped closer, those gray eyes sliding to Nora, studying her with an interest that made her want to shrink. "So this is the famous girl. The human who miraculously calms the great Alpha King." Kael tilted his head again. "I'll admit, I expected something more impressive." Raiden lunged forward, but Kael lifted a hand. "Careful. My men have very specific orders. If I give the signal, they take her. And something tells me you'd rather that didn't happen." "If you touch her," Raiden began, his voice a growl, "what will you do? Kill me? Here? Surrounded by my guards?" Kael let out a low laugh. "Don't be foolish, Raiden. We both know that would end badly for both of us. That's why I came with an offer. I want nothing you have to offer. Not even her life." The silence that followed was absolute. Kael smiled, knowing he had hit the mark. "I thought that would get your attention. So listen carefully, because I'll say this only once." He folded his arms. "For years, I've wanted your throne, your territories, your title of Supreme Alpha King. But I'm not stupid enough to start an open war. Too many lives lost, too many resources wasted. So I came to offer an alternative." "What?" "An alpha duel." The words dropped like stones into the tavern's silence. Nora did not fully understand what it meant, but she saw Kael's guards straighten, saw the tension in the air sharpen until it was almost tangible. "An alpha duel," Raiden repeated, his voice dangerously low. "You know what you're asking." "Perfectly," Kael replied. "Ancient tradition, Two alphas fight until one submits or dies. The winner takes all territories, power, and titles of the defeated. Simple. Clean. Final. And the girl? Where does she fit into this? Kale smiled again, that cruel smile that made Nora's stomach twist. She's the incentive. You see, I need to ensure you actually show up for the duel. So she comes with me, as collateral. When the duel is over, if you survive, you can have her back. Never. Raiden's roar made the walls tremble. His eyes flared gold, claws beginning to emerge. She's not going anywhere with you. Kale made a subtle gesture, and his guards advanced, boxing Raiden and Nora in from every side. You really want to do this here? Kale asked, calm. Fight all of my best wolves, risk her getting hurt in the process. Or would you rather accept my offer, have a fair chance to defeat me, and bring her back safe and sound? Raiden went completely still, and Nora saw the war raging behind those golden eyes. The struggle between the instinct to protect her now and the cold logic that a fight here could kill her. Nora stepped forward, touching Raiden's arm. Don't do this, she whispered. Please. Just fight him then. Don't let me go with... If I fight here, you could die, Raiden replied, his voice breaking. And that I cannot risk. But, trust me. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Please, just trust me. I will win. I will bring you back, I promise. Nora felt tears burn in her eyes, but she nodded. Raiden turned to Kale, and when he spoke, every word carried pure hatred. I accept the duel, but if you touch her, if you do anything beyond keeping her safe, I swear by the old gods there will not be a slow enough death for you. Kyle lifted his hands in a gesture of peace. She will not be touched. You have my word as an alpha. Kyle gestured, and two of his guards moved toward Nora. Take her, carefully. Nora tried to step back, but they were faster. They caught her arms, not brutally, but firmly enough to make it clear resistance was useless. Raiden, she screamed, struggling against their grip. Raiden moved instinctively, but a dozen swords were drawn at once, all pointed at him. Don't, Kyle warned, or she gets hurt, and I know you don't want that. Raiden stopped, trembling with restrained fury, his golden eyes never leaving Nora as she was dragged away from him. 5 days, Kyle said. On the neutral lands between our realms, at sunset on the 3rd day. If you don't show, well, I suppose she becomes property of the southern lands. I'll be there, Raiden roared, and when I am, I'll rip her from you and then tear you apart limb by limb. Kale only smiled. I'm looking forward to watching you try. And then Nora was taken out of the tavern, her heart pounding, tears streaming down her face, while the last thing she saw was Raiden standing there, motionless, shattered, watching her disappear. The journey to Kale's fortress in the southern lands took 2 days of hard riding, stopping only to rest the horses and eat quickly. Nora was kept under constant watch, always surrounded by guards, never left alone, always observed. Kale rode at the front, never looking back, as if she were nothing more than baggage to be hauled along. On the first night, when they made camp in a clearing, Nora finally understood the extent of Kale's planning. She caught fragments of conversation between the guards. The Alpha has been planning this for months, one of them said, ever since the spies confirmed the curse existed. And the governess's letter? It only sped up the timeline. He already knew the king would go looking for the girl. He just didn't know where she'd be. Months, Nora thought in horror. He had been preparing this for months. Adrian's letter had simply delivered the final piece. On the 2nd day, Nora tried to talk to the guards, searching for any weakness, any chance to escape. But they were professionals, trained, disciplined, loyal to Kale in ways she couldn't break. Don't waste your energy, one of them said, not unkindly. Alpha Kale didn't choose us because we're fools, And you, well, you're far too valuable to risk losing. Valuable as a hostage, Nora shot back bitterly. Valuable as a chess piece, the guard corrected. There's a difference. When they finally crossed the mountains and the fortress appeared on the horizon, Nora felt desperation tighten in her throat. The structure was immense. Black stone walls rising against the gray sky, spired towers like teeth, iron gates that opened with a menacing groan. Nora was taken inside, through cold, damp corridors, until they reached a room in what seemed to be one of the towers. And then Nora was alone. Cale visited her the next morning. He entered without knocking, carrying a tray of bread and water, which he set on the table as if he were a courteous host. "Sleep well?" he asked, his gray eyes studying her. Nora didn't answer. She only stared at him with all the rage she could gather. Cale sighed and sat down in the chair. "I see you're still angry, understandable, but I hope that, with time, you'll be able to see things more rationally." "I will never see anything your way," Nora said, her voice coming out rough. "Raiden will come, and when he does, he'll destroy you." "Ah, yes, Raiden." Cale leaned back, crossing his legs. "Let's talk about him then." "Do you truly think he can defeat me?" "I know he can." "Even with the curse?" Nora hesitated, and Cale saw it. "I see you know about it. Good. Then you also know that, in a prolonged duel, Raiden will inevitably lose control. His wolf will turn against him, and when that happens, well, it will be easy to finish what the curse started. He's stronger than you think." "Perhaps," Cale admitted. "But strength isn't everything. There's also intelligence, strategy, preparation." He leaned forward. "And I have all three. I've studied Raiden for years, Nora. I know exactly how he fights. I know his weaknesses. I know when the curse affects his control." He stood, moved closer to the window, and looked out at the mountains with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I am not a cruel man without reason," he said at last. "Everything I do because I believe I am more fit to rule than Raiden. He is weak, controlled by a curse, obsessive. He left the throne for you, abandoned his duties. That isn't strength, it's weakness." "That is love," Nora replied. Kyle turned to look at her, surprised. "Love? You truly believe that?" "I know it." Kyle studied her for a long moment, then let out a low laugh. "Interesting. Very interesting." He walked until he stood right in front of her. "Then tell me, Nora, are you sure you aren't confusing love with convenience?" Raiden was on the edge of death. 1 year left until the curse destroys him completely. Desperate, vulnerable. And then you appear, the perfect solution. His gray eyes narrowed. How do you know what he feels for you is true love, and not just gratitude from a man clinging to the only lifeline available? The words struck something deep, but Nora lifted her chin. "You're taking advantage of his condition, trying to manipulate the situation while he's fighting to survive." She held his gaze. "Raiden is benevolent, just... You're only consumed by the desire for power." "Benevolent?" Cale laughed. "He abandoned the kingdom for you, left the throne exposed. Is that benevolence or obsession? It's love, and you will never understand it. You know nothing about us." "I know more than you think," Cale said, stepping closer still, until Nora had to tilt her head back to keep looking into those gray eyes. "I know Raiden is desperate. I know he'll do anything to get you back. And I know," he paused, "that you deserve something better than a man broken by a curse. If you're trying to convince me to choose you, you're wasting your time." Cale smiled. "I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Not yet. Just planting seeds. He stepped away, heading for the door. Think, Nora. And when the duel comes, you'll have to decide. Stay with a man who loves you out of need, or consider other options. Before Nora could respond, Kale opened the door and left. Alone, Nora sat on the narrow bed and finally allowed herself to process everything. He is right about one thing, she admitted reluctantly. Raiden needs me. Without my healer's blood, without my presence to calm the wolf, the curse will kill him on his next birthday. But that isn't all there is between us, she insisted to herself. It can't be. The way he looks at me, the way he touches me, the way he crossed half the kingdom to find me. But doubt, once planted, was hard to uproot. The next morning, Kale returned. This time he brought a more elaborate breakfast, fresh bread, fruit, even a bit of honey. I thought you might be tired of the basic fare, he said, setting the tray on the table. Nora looked at the food but didn't touch it. What do you want, Kale? To talk, he said, sitting down. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen, Kale said, leaning forward. Let me tell you a story about a young alpha who grew up being taught that strength was everything. That ruling was about power, about dominance. That weakness, any weakness, was intolerable. Nora didn't answer, but he continued. That young alpha watched Raiden Valaward over the years. He saw a powerful king, feared, respected. But he also saw the cracks, the curse that made him vulnerable every year, the solitude that consumed him, the obsession with finding a salvation that might not even exist. And you thought you could exploit that. I thought I could offer a better alternative, Kale corrected. A ruler without a curse, without weakness, able to lead without being torn apart from within every year. A ruler without a heart, Nora replied, without empathy, without love. Kyle went quiet for a moment. Love is weakness, he said at last. It makes you vulnerable, manipulable. Look at what Raiden is doing, risking everything, his kingdom, his throne, his life, for a woman. That isn't weakness, Nora said. That is strength, the strength to prioritize what matters. And what matters? Kyle asked. One person, or the thousands who depend on a strong ruler? Both can coexist. Can they? Kyle stood. We'll find out. When Raiden arrives for the duel, we'll see if your love is enough to win. Or if, in the end, it's just another weakness to be exploited. And then he left again. On the third morning, Kale entered with a different expression. More serious. More determined. Today is the day, he said. The duel happens at sunset. And before we go, I need you to understand something. Nora didn't answer. She just waited. If I win, when I win, you will become my Luna. Not by choice, but by right of conquest. Everything that was Raiden's becomes mine, including you. I'm not property. In the wolves' world, that is exactly what a Luna is, Kyle replied coldly. Property, symbol, power. And you will be mine. Nora felt fear tighten in her throat, but she forced herself to lift her chin. Then kill me too, because alive, I will never be yours. Something flickered in Kale's gray eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. You have more strength than you look like you do, he said at last. It's a shame it's wasted on a man who doesn't deserve it. He turned toward the door. Get ready. We leave in 1 hour. And as the door closed behind him, Nora allowed herself one last silent prayer. Please, Raiden. Please, survive. Please. The arena had been prepared on neutral ground, a vast plain surrounded by rocky hills, where neither Raiden's realm nor Kale's could claim territorial advantage. When Nora arrived, escorted by Kale's guards, her heart nearly stopped. There were hundreds of wolves there. Hundreds. On both sides, forming an enormous circle around a space marked off by ancient stones carved with runes she couldn't read. They were warriors, nobles, representatives of smaller packs, all come to witness what could shift the balance of power across the entire kingdom. And at the center of the arena, waiting, stood Raiden. He wore only dark leather trousers, his bare torso revealing taut muscle. His blonde hair was pulled back and tied at the nape of his neck, and when his golden eyes found Nora's through the crowd, the whole world seemed to stop. Nora saw the pain there, the desperation, the restrained fury, but also something deeper. Absolute determination. She tried to run to him, but the guards held her tightly, leading her to an elevated area where she would be forced to watch. Kyle was already there, seated on a kind of improvised throne, completely relaxed as if this were mere entertainment. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, as Nora was positioned beside him. "This should be an interesting spectacle." Nora didn't answer. She only kept her eyes fixed on Raiden, trying to send him through her gaze everything she couldn't say out loud. "I believe in you. Please, survive." On the far side of the arena, Theron stood beside Raiden, his voice low but urgent. "Majesty, there's still time to refuse. We could raise an army, invade his fortress, rescue her by—" "No," Raiden cut him off, his golden eyes never leaving Nora. "This ends here, today, the right way." "But the curse, I know," Raiden said, finally looking at his captain, and there was acceptance in his eyes. "I know if the fight goes on too long, I'll lose control. I know Kale is counting on that. But I also know I have no choice. She is my Luna, Theron, and I will not abandon her." "He planned this for months, Majesty," Theron said urgently. "Our informants confirmed it. Kale has studied your every move, every fighting pattern, every moment the curse affects your control. He knows exactly what to do." "Then I'll have to be unpredictable," Raiden replied. Theron was silent for a moment, then placed a hand on Raiden's shoulder. "Then fight like you've never fought before." "I won't die," Raiden said, and there was so much conviction in those words that Theron almost believed him. "And I will prove," Raiden thought, looking at Nora one more time, "that she isn't my weakness. She is my strength." An elder with white hair stepped into the arena, carrying a staff carved with ancient symbols. His voice echoed across the plain, carried by magic that made everyone present fall silent. "Alphas of North and South, today you face each other in an ancestral duel," he declared. "The rules are simple. Fight until one submits or dies. There is no dishonorable surrender. There is no outside interference. What happens within this sacred circle is witnessed by the gods and accepted by all." He looked at Raiden. "Raiden Valaward, Alpha King. Do you accept the terms?" "I accept." Raiden's voice rang out, steady. The elder turned to Kyle. "Kyle Mordain, Alpha of the Southern Lands. Do you accept the terms?" Kyle rose, stepping down from the elevated area with measured strides. "I accept." He entered the arena, and for the first time, Nora saw the two men side by side. Both were immense, powerful, built for war. But there was a difference. Raiden moved with natural grace, like a confident predator, blonde hair catching the last light of the setting sun. Kale moved with calculated precision, like a strategist who left nothing to chance, his dark hair stark against his icy gray eyes. The elder lifted his staff. "May the moon goddess judge who is worthy," he said. "Begin." Raiden attacked first. He launched himself across the distance between them with a speed that was almost impossible to track, partially shifting in the process, claws bursting out, fangs lengthening, his eyes burning gold. The first strike went for Kale's throat, meant to end the fight quickly. But Kale was experienced. He dodged at the last instant, Raiden's claws only grazing his shoulder, and countered with a brutal punch that slammed into Raiden's ribs with enough force to break bone. Raiden snarled in pain but didn't retreat. Instead, he spun and drove a kick into the side of Kale's head, sending him stumbling. The crowd roared. The two alphas circled each other, eyes locked, bodies tight, waiting for the next opening. Then Kale shifted fully. His body erupted into dark gray fur, bones rearranging, and in seconds, where a man had stood there, was now a massive wolf, nearly as large as Raiden's, with a coat that gleamed like silver beneath the setting sun, and gray eyes that burned with cruel intelligence. Raiden didn't hesitate. He shifted fully too, and when his wolf emerged, black as night, larger, more powerful, with golden eyes that blazed like fire, the entire arena felt the weight of his power. He was the Alpha King. And he was furious. The two wolves crashed together with a force that made the earth tremble. Claws tore flesh. Teeth sank into throats. Blood stained the ground as they fought in a deadly dance as old as their very race. Nora watched with her heart in her throat, unable to look away, her hands clenched so tightly her nails bit into her palms. Please, please, please. The fight was brutal, violent. Raiden was stronger, faster, but Kyle was cunning. Every time Raiden tried to finish it, Kale slipped away, dodged, and struck back at the weak points he knew to target. And as the minutes dragged on, as blood kept spilling, Nora saw something begin to change. Raiden was slowing, not much, but enough to be noticed. His shifts began to falter, not fully man, not fully wolf, but something in between, and the pain showed in every movement. Absolute terror tightened around Nora's throat. No, not now. Not when he's so close. Kale noticed too. She saw the satisfaction flare in his gray eyes as he began to press harder, attacking without pause, forcing Raiden to defend again and again. It's exactly what he planned, Nora realized. Drag it out. Wear Raiden down. Wait for the curse to surface. And then it happened. Raiden roared, a sound half human, half beast, filled with pure agony, and his shift failed completely. He got stuck between forms, his body twisting, claws bursting out and retracting, bones cracking in the wrong directions. The curse was taking over. Kale seized the moment instantly. He lunged, slamming Raiden down, his fangs clamping around Raiden's throat, pressing, choking. The crowd fell silent. Everyone knew what it meant. The duel was ending. Nora surged to her feet, the chains that held her to the chair stretching to their limit, and screamed with everything she had. "Raiden!" The shout split the silence like thunder. And something impossible happened. Raiden stopped fighting the shift. Instead, he closed his eyes, even with Kale's fangs still pressing into his throat, and focused. Not on the wild wolf trying to rip him apart from the inside, not on the pain of the curse, but on her voice. Nora. He remembered her touch that first night, the way she had calmed his wolf with a single gesture. And then, for the first time in 32 years, Raiden didn't fight the wolf. He accepted it as part of himself. The transformation that had once torn his body apart now flowed smoothly, naturally, the way it was meant to. Wolf and man fused completely, not at war, but in harmony. And when Raiden opened his eyes again, they burned with a power no alpha there had ever seen. He roared, a sound that made the ground shake, that made every wolf present bow instinctively, and hurled Kyle away with brutal force. Kyle hit the ground several yards away, stunned, and when he tried to rise, Raiden was already on him. What happened next was devastating. Raiden attacked with a ferocity that bordered on savage, yet he kept absolute control. Every strike was precise, every bite was calculated. Kale tried to defend himself, tried to counter using everything he'd learned from years of studying Raiden. But he couldn't. In less than 5 minutes, Kale was on the ground, bleeding from dozens of wounds, barely able to breathe. Raiden stood over him, jaws closing around Kale's throat, pressing. Not enough to kill, but enough to make it clear he could. And then he waited. The elder approached slowly, his staff thudding against the ground. "Alpha Kyle Mordain," he said, his voice carrying. "Do you submit?" Kyle stayed silent for a long moment, pride warring with survival. But when Raiden pressed a little harder, when the taste of blood filled Kale's mouth, Kyle finally yielded. He bared his throat completely, the universal gesture of submission among wolves, and whispered the word that sealed his fate. "I submit." The arena erupted in roars. Raiden released Kale's throat and backed away, shifting slowly back into human form. He was covered in blood, his own and Kyle's, but he remained standing, victorious. His blonde hair, smeared with dirt and blood, gleamed beneath the setting sun. The elder lifted his staff. "Raiden Valward is declared the victor," he proclaimed. By right of conquest, all of Kale Mordain's territories, powers, and possessions now belong to the Alpha King of Valaward. But Raiden didn't care about territories. He didn't care about power. He turned, golden eyes sweeping the crowd until they found what he was searching for. Nora. She was still in the elevated area, shaking, crying, but alive. Alive. And his. Raiden crossed the arena in long strides, ignoring the pain of his injuries, ignoring the crowd's cheers. When he reached her, he simply pulled her into his arms and held her as if he would never let her go again. Nora sobbed against his chest. "You won," Raiden murmured into her hair. "Absolutely nothing is going to separate us again." He pulled back slightly, cradling her face in his hands, and there were so many emotions in his golden eyes that Nora could barely process them all. "I love you," he said, each word clear, absolute. "Not out of need. Not because you break the curse. But because you're the only person who makes me feel whole. The only one who sees me not as a king, but as a man. And if I have to spend the rest of my life proving that, I will." And then she kissed him. Right there, in front of hundreds of witnesses, surrounded by blood and glory, Nora kissed Raiden with everything she had. And when they finally pulled apart, the crowd's roar of approval made the earth tremble. The claiming ceremony took place that same night, on neutral ground, beneath a star-filled sky, with hundreds of wolves forming a sacred circle. The elder led the rite, the words in an ancient tongue echoing through the night. "Raiden Valward, Supreme Alpha King of all the northern realms, and now the south," his voice reverberated. "Do you claim this woman as your Luna?" "I claim her," Raiden answered, holding Nora's hand. "And you, Nora." The elder paused, his eyes studying her as if he could see through her, reading something others could not. When he spoke again, there was reverence in his voice. "Healer of ancient blood and tamer of wolves. Do you accept this man as your alpha, your mate?" Nora looked at Raiden, to the man who had crossed half the kingdom to find her, who had fought curse and enemies to protect her, who looked at her now with those golden eyes as if she were the only thing that mattered. "I accept," she said, her voice steady. The elder smiled, the first genuine smile he had shown. "Then let it be sealed beneath the full moon, witnessed by the ancestors." Raiden pulled Nora to him, leaning in until his lips brushed her neck, exactly where her pulse beat hard. And then, before everyone, he bit. It wasn't brutal. It was reverent. The claiming mark, the final seal of the soul bond between Alpha and Luna. Nora gasped at the sensation. Sharp pain followed by heat that spread through her entire body like liquid fire. She felt something shift at a deep level, felt the bond between them solidify in a way that could never be broken. When Raiden pulled back, there was blood on his lips, and the mark on her neck glowed under the moonlight, permanent, visible, declaring to the whole world that she belonged to him as much as he belonged to her. The crowd roared again, but Nora only had eyes for Raiden. "Now you are my Luna," he said, touching the mark with reverence. "Now, you are truly mine." "I always was," Nora replied. And when they kissed again, sealing the bond in every way that mattered, the full moon above seemed to shine a little brighter. 3 months later, Nora stood in the gardens of Valaward Castle, watching Ryden train with the guards in the courtyard below. So much had changed since the duel. Cale had been banished, his lands absorbed into Ryden's kingdom, his wolves given the choice to submit or leave. Most chose submission, acknowledging that Ryden was the stronger alpha. Lady Edrian was never seen again. People said she had fled to distant lands. But Nora didn't care. The woman held no power over her anymore. And the curse was broken. Not completely. There would still be time, the healers said. Perhaps a few more years with Nora at Ryden's side. But in the last month, when there should have been pain, there was nothing. Only peace. And Nora had uncovered something else about the curse. As she studied her lineage, she found old records about Morrigan Vael. The witch hadn't been only vengeful, she had been prophetic. She knew the only way to break the curse was through a healer of ancient blood, and she knew, too, that in that time, healers were hunted, persecuted, killed. Morrigan had cast the curse knowing that, to save their king, the realm would be forced to value the very people it persecuted. It was a brutal lesson. You kill witches and healers out of fear of what you don't understand. But the day will come when the king himself will depend on them to survive. And then you will have to choose, pride or salvation. Morrigan had gotten her revenge. But she had also left a legacy of change. Healers who once hid were now called openly to the castle. Witches offered their services without fear. Ancient knowledge, once suppressed, returned to the light. And it was exactly that knowledge that allowed Nora to discover who she truly was. Over the past 3 months, Nora had thrown herself into studying her gift. She learned it wasn't only healer's blood. It was an old, powerful lineage. Thessaly Ellsworth, her mother, had been one of the most powerful healers of her generation. And she also learned why she had been abandoned. Thessaly hadn't left her at the orphanage out of lack of love. She had been hunted. When Nora was born, Thessaly knew her daughter carried the same gift, perhaps even stronger. So she did the only thing a mother could do. She hid her. She brought the baby to the orphanage on a stormy night, left only a handkerchief embroidered with the initials N.E., Nora Ellsworth, and vanished far away, drawing the hunters in another direction. To protect her daughter, Thessaly sacrificed the chance to ever know her. The records said she was never found. Some believed she had died. Others believed she had fled to distant lands. But Nora chose to believe that, wherever she was, Thessaly had done it out of love. The same kind of love Nora understood now, the kind that makes you sacrifice everything for the person who matters most. And Nora was learning to honor that legacy. "My Luna!" Ryden's voice rang out from the courtyard, and Nora turned to see him waving, sweaty from training, but smiling in a way that was only for her. His blonde hair shone under the afternoon sun. "Come, I need you to demonstrate something." Nora laughed, shaking her head, but she went down the steps toward him. And when Ryden pulled her into his arms, not caring that he was sweaty, not caring that guards were watching, and kissed her like he'd been waiting an eternity for it, Nora knew. She was home, not in the castle, not in the kingdom, but in his arms.